Hello listeners, we are your co-hosts Jeanine Bailey and Marie Quigley for the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast.
Empower World brings guests who are making a difference to the world to inspire coaches and leaders who lead with mind, heart and soul.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Empower World Coaching and Leadership Podcast. And today I am in sunny Melbourne, or south of Melbourne, in the Wadawurrung country, which is part of the Kulin Nation, which specifically is Point Lonsdale down in Victoria. And today I am being joined by the wonderful Katie Mapondera, who is with me today, our Empower World associate, who does a magnificent job for Empower World, and I know in many other spaces and places. And Katie is here because Marie is on a well-earned rest. She's having a month of pause to refresh and self-care. So I'm delighted that Marie is taking care of herself. And again, we're so lucky to have Katie on board today. So welcome, Katie.
I'm really happy to be here and excited for this conversation that we're going to have.
Me too. And I know you're in I'm sure sunny Doha, very hot. I'm imagining right now.
Very, very sunny and very, very hot. Yes, both very apt adjectives.
Yeah. I must say I miss being in Doha, but perhaps not those days, not those really hot, wet days. So, Katie, I'm delighted that you're with me. We have been chatting before we've come on here about what we're focusing on today. And it really is that bringing of the wonderful coaching skills with leadership, and of course, expanding more on what leadership really means. We know that authentic, powerful, positive leadership has an incredible impact on the people that experience heart-led, wise mind-led leadership that is about human beings, not just the human doings. It's about the human beings, engaging them to be able to bring out their best so that then they are working incredibly effectively with heart, mind, and soul to be able to do what is right for the organization, the team, and for themselves. And so, Katie, I really appreciated the journey that you've been on. So perhaps an introduction from you about why this is so important to you, those soft skills or those, I think you called them something else, the skills that go beyond the task-driven type of skills.
Well, you summarized that so beautifully and so succinctly, and really you described a sort of the hard-won lesson that I had to learn in my leadership journey. I was admitting to you a little earlier, and I've shared this openly. In my very first leadership position, I was not a good leader. I was not a good leader because I did have this notion that I've seen as not uncommon, because I've been led this way since and before I led this way, which is, to really think that what matters most is the strategy and the logic and the systems from more of a cerebral perspective. That was really very much the position I was coming from, and I learned the hard way that the soft stuff matters. The soft stuff, in fact, is what defines, organizational outcomes, leadership outcomes. And I'm not just, talking fluff. And this is not just from my individual experience. I mean, I had mentioned to you as we were chatting earlier, there's an amazing author and researcher. His name is Daniel Goleman, who was looking at, he did extensive research on what kind of leadership drives bottom line results. So he was looking at what type of leadership results in the best possible financial outcomes for companies. And what he discovered was that there were these resonant leadership styles, that engage the team and galvanize the team in ways that result in them bringing the type of performance that creates results. And so in studying Daniel Goleman's work and practicing it, frankly, I spent almost a decade, really just trying to integrate my understanding of what he was saying in terms of these resonant leadership styles and practicing these. I came to realize that, look, if you want people to show up on time, you want them to have attention to detail, you want them to be creative and resourceful and resilient, their feelings are what are going to drive those things. Their feelings, not the paycheck, actually. I mean, yes, the paycheck is important, but it's their feelings that are going to cause them to perform at a level that causes the company to thrive, or the nonprofit to thrive. In my case, I was at a nonprofit in that first leadership role. And so, going on this journey of learning, well, how do I as a leader create an atmosphere where my team have feelings that result in them really bringing their best selves to work? And I was really just feeling a lot of gratitude, as I was sharing with you earlier, that coming to Empower World Coach Training, I think, was very much bringing all of that learning together from my leadership journey on what, why do these particular things work? Because there was a kind of a deeper dive into, how do we move ourselves in our motivation and connection and mindset, and then holding space for another person, which is something that ultimately leaders, whether they accept this or not, this is what they're doing. They're holding space for the people on their team to show up in a particular way. And I think I, as a leader, early on, I was not conscious of the fact that I'm holding space, and so it becomes really important to just have that awareness. Daniel Goleman did some interesting research with another researcher. The last name is Boyastis. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. But he essentially, they were looking at the fact that the reason why leadership that addresses that unseen part is so powerful is because human beings, biologically, now this is the science, the neuroscience, human beings are what we call open systems. So, we have an open limbic system. So the way that we developed in order to survive in nature was to be able to connect with each other and communicate. And not just verbally. We communicate in very subtle ways that we don't even realize. And so a leader has a particularly powerful influence on the system. They did some interesting research on this, where apparently a leader was closed in a room, not interacting with their team, and the mood of the leader impacted the way that the team was feeling. Without even, they didn't see the leader, they weren't speaking to the leader, but the energy of the leader impacted the team. I don't know if that is yet well explained, the mechanisms for why that's true, but it just speaks to how important it is for us to be aware that the unspoken, unseen aspects of ourselves, this is not some fluffy, mystical stuff. This is science. That unseen, unspoken aspect of ourselves is really driving results in organizations. It's impacting the performance of our teams. And I have to say, once I got that, the kind of space I could hold for my team and the kind of performance that my team brought was on a very different level. So I'm just, as you can see, I'm very passionate about this because I've invested a lot of time and practice in developing my awareness and understanding. And I think that's another important point to make. A lot of people, well, I thought when I first became a leader, I thought that leaders were born. I thought I was a natural leader because I could think of solutions. I could get people to do what I want them to do. But what I found was the performance was subpar, turnover was high. There wasn't coherence in the team. There wasn't strong communication in the team. So the results were not what they could have been. And so I needed to learn ultimately that what matters in leadership is, really being able to tap into people's mindset, people's energy, because that drives everything about how they're showing up to work. So glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah. Wow, Katie, thank you so much for sharing what you've shared and what you've learned, what you've experienced, and some of those important messages that not only you've experienced, but you've also read about. And, I'm sure our listeners have got so much value already, as I am. And, the reconfirmation about what it is to be a really effective leader. And there were so many things that you shared that I felt, to respond to that would be wonderful. So I'm going to try. I've written down a few words to see if I can reconnect with what remember what you've shared. And that the story of you in your first leadership role. Thank you for your honesty and courage to share that experience, because I'm sure many people like me resonate with what you've shared. And I was thinking about also my own experiences with different leaders over the years, and those that I felt drawn to, and I was inspired to work with them and to do good things with them. And I'm thinking of some of the poor leaders that I worked with as well, and how it really drove me away. But there was a plus side, and I use the word but. There was a plus side because it inspired me to do what I'm doing now, to be in charge of my own destiny. And that means also being a leader in terms of our team, in terms of the rooms that we hold the space for, particularly when we're doing coach training, and so many other roles. So I really appreciated your story, because I know that when I was first asked to lead someone, I really didn't know what it meant in terms of being able to engage someone and bring them on a journey. So through trial and error, and then of course doing something like coach training was a magnificent opportunity to realize, it's so different from what maybe not so different, but it is different from what I understood. It's really creating those relationships, being mindful, holding that space, connecting to the people that we have in our teams in terms of what drives them, what inspires them, what awakens them, and also to give them autonomy and independence and ability to find their own way through the challenge with support and so much more. So I really appreciated that holding of space for people to find their way through the challenges. And yes, sometimes it is necessary to provide clear direction, clear pointing out, depending on the challenge that is coming up. And it's also tapping into the wisdom of the person or the team that we're working with. you talked about emotions, I believe. We talked about skin. We are skin bags full of emotions. So a leader is aware of their own emotions and supports others to do the same, to tap into their emotions. So to tap into their wisdom. And you talked about those unconscious ways that we communicate. That example through, I've forgotten his name already, Daniel Goleman, and the other fellow. And truly, there's so much research, isn't there, out there that reinforces that we are communicating in so many different ways through our physiology, through our energy, through the words we say, don't say, that has an impact in that system that leaders are in. And there is potentially an impact in terms of health. What's the driver behind the leaders' intentions and motivations and why they're there? Is it coming from a place of fear or a place of desire? And depending on, what the motivation is, what's the impact in the system? So that was what was coming up for me, which was quite a bit of sharing as well.
Yes, well, and I love that you touched on the fear element because, I think so many leaders do this, and I know I did it unconsciously. I did it, which was to tap into fear as a motivator. And you know what? I won't even say that I was unconscious. I mean, as I think back to certain stories, certain specific instances in my own journey, I think about, times when perhaps I felt that a particular employee was underperforming. And my go-to strategy was, well, if this person wants to keep their job, then, they need to perform. And me having a conversation with the employee from that space. And now I believe I was having an error in thinking that I think many leaders have, which is to be short-sighted. Because it is true that fear is a very effective motivator. I was fueling myself on fear a lot, which I didn't realize as much until I did my Empower World coach training and really, and being coached, by peers in my cohort. I realized that I was using fear as a way to power my results. And I was doing the same as a leader. And that is effective in the short term, but it's not effective in the long term, because yes, the employee may jump around for the next day, the next hour, the next month. But at the same time, there's a domino effect there that I wasn't taking into account, which is, this employee doesn't feel safe here. So they're looking for another job elsewhere. Mm-hmm. This employee, because they're looking for another job, they're just doing the bare minimum here in order to get paid until they find something else. So what I did by using fear as a motivator is I created a clock-watching employee who was not bringing their passion and their creativity. I mean, one of the things we touched on, and I think before this conversation was, once I realized what an awful boss I was, and I'll tell you the story of how I came to that realization. But once I realized that, I systematically started to just read. I knew I wanted to lead, but I had to acknowledge the fact that, first of all, my first assumption that I was a born leader because I was good at solving problems and good at making people, do what I needed them to do. I needed to recognize that was not actually leadership. That's not leadership. And I did not know how to lead, but I wanted to, and I needed to build the skills to do so. Once I realized that, I started to read and practice what I was learning. Didn't always get it right. I mentioned, almost a decade of practicing And one of the authors that I read said something that really stuck with me. He said, you can pay an employee to put their physical body into the building, put their butt into the seat, as they say, to sit in the chair in front of the desk, but you cannot pay for their passion and their creativity. Those are things that the employee volunteers. And so if you are going to motivate with fear, you are shutting down that volunteerism, and you have converted that relationship into a purely transactional relationship, and you are not going to get the types of results that you're looking for. And that's really where those coaching skills are so essential, because if you want to bring someone to volunteer their passion and creativity, you need to be curious about them. And coaching, coach training teaches us how to be curious. How do you, it's a wonderful thing to have that curiosity internally, but how do you exercise that as a leader? What does that look like in practice? Obviously, curiosity, you're asking questions. So understanding how to ask questions, but it's not enough just to ask questions. As you said, what kind of a connection are you creating with the person you're asking questions of so that they actually feel safe to share? So one of the big learnings for me over this decade of practicing and learning was about, how do I get the best results out of my team? And, practicing Daniel Goleman's resonant leadership styles. One of the resonant leadership styles is literally called the coaching style. And that's a really, really powerful way to have your team drive action. There are a lot of, I've coached leaders who complain about how if they are not the one involved, the team doesn't act, and they're wanting to be able to lean back more. You need to bring in those coaching skills. You need to, ideally, you're knowing how to, as you put it earlier, challenge your team to bring their insights. Invite your team to tap into their wisdom and to listen to it and to enable them to act on it. So converting that wisdom into action. That is also an important part of what coaching is about. So, it's so important, I think, for leaders to become conscious and wake up, because I think I was asleep, and I think many other leaders are asleep in terms of what is the actual impact of what you're doing to your team. You may think, because you were led that way, that this is the way that you need to lead, but the thing is, every person is unique, and what's working for you or worked for you to get you here may not work to get them there. You know what I mean? So I think it's really, really, really important for leaders to kind of become conscious of the fact that, first of all, leadership is a skill set. It's a learned skill set. And a person does need to commit to a process of study, just like, if you want to become an engineer, we can tinker and that can take us so far. At the same time, if we arm ourselves with the body of knowledge that's available out there, there's a different level that we can accomplish. And so too with leading, if we arm ourselves with skills, very specific skills where we practice and hone our skills as a leader, the way that we can transform our organizations is something else. So, that's something I'm grateful to have learned. And it's a message I really wanted to spread, because I feel I still grapple with a bit of guilt, maybe, for the kind of experience I created for people, because I didn't understand what I was doing. I thought I was doing what was necessary to get results. And once I understood, not only was I doing the opposite of what would create the results that I wanted, I had team members experiencing needless fear, needless discomfort. And I want people to know that, okay, if that's how you're leading right now, you can change and you can grow. If you are hearing this message in this podcast, take this as your nudge, to pivot. And it's okay to pivot, start now to learn what it actually means to lead. You had an idea of what it was. You were using certain strategies. You're not getting all the results you could do. So start now to learn and practice. And it's so worth it. It is so, 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 so worth it.
I am. Absolutely, absolutely, Katie. And again, thank you for sharing so much wisdom from your experiences and what you've learned. And the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, comes to mind. And you've probably heard us share this, that he was told to, or advised to, get a coach to support him as a leader. And he said back to the person, why would I get a coach when I'm one of the most successful CEOs in the world, in charge of one of the biggest companies in the world? And the advisor, I think, persisted, and Eric Schmidt did trust this advisor, so he did get a coach. And as he will share on YouTube, it was one of the best things he ever did. He recognized, even though I'm highly successful, I still have blind spots. I still have blind spots in the ways that I do things. Blind spots meaning unconscious beliefs, unconscious ways of habits, being and doing. So someone like himself was, able to hear that message that I can still do what I do even better. So, and something else that you triggered for me as well, Katie, in my own leadership journey before I went into the coaching profession. I remember I was asked to lead actually a friend, which made it, again, doubly challenging. And so we never had any sort of disagreement as such, but we were having challenges because my young friend, was incredibly, incredibly smart, talented, and could see the details, understand the details, as well as the big picture. My strength is more big picture, not the details. So therein was a challenge for me leading her, because she understood the big picture, but she was very aware of the minutiae, the details. And so I remember having that conversation with her about how we see our world. And it was then that I realized, I have some blind spots. And it just so happened that a friend of mine asked me to go on this coaching program with her. She had she'd just been trained as a coach, and asked me if I could be her, let's say, guinea pig in inverted commas. And I said yes, believing that I had it all together. And as I went on that journey, I realized, yes, here are those blind spots. And this is what I need to go through to be able to peel back those layers and learn a different way of being, so that, again, as a leader, I can, as you shared earlier, ask questions to bring out the wisdom of the people that are working for us, really trusting that they have the answers. I don't have to have the answers as the leader. I have a team that works with me that does have the answers.
I really love that you said that. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if none of us have the answers, we work together. We get curious together to find the way forward.
I really, really love that you said that, because I think that is also a big sort of question mark and challenge, especially new leaders grapple with, is, they may oftentimes when we get promoted to leadership, it's because we did an individual job very well. And because we did an individual job very well, our assumption is, oh, well, in order to lead these folks, I need to know how to do things better than they do. Because that's what makes me the leader. That's what secures my spot. And because we have that notion, we cling to trying to be on top and ahead of our team, when that particular mindset is actually repressing the strength of the team. And it is a signal that you're not leading at the level that would really transform the results of the organization. If you notice yourself feeling like, well, I have to know more than everybody else, I have to have the answers, I have to be telling and teaching and talking down to, that's a signal that there's an opportunity for you to grow as a leader, and there's an opportunity for you to elevate yourself as a leader. Because, as you were saying, really the strength comes from the expertise and strongest capabilities in the team all coming together to create the best possible result. And if I, as the leader, am preoccupied with trying to make sure that I'm the knower, I'm the one who has the answers, I'm not gonna hold space for people to bring their expertise. I mean, I think Steve Jobs said something to the effect that, look, I hire people who are smarter than me so that they can tell me what to do. And so I think, I really want to invite people in a leadership role to sit with that and consider, hey, it is absolutely fantastic if I have people on my team who have, amazing ideas that I didn't think of, who are able to do certain things faster than me, who are able to do certain things better than me. That's great, because that means I can really lean on the strength of the team, and I can do what I'm meant to do as a leader. I can be focused on, strategy. I can be focused on the bigger picture, the vision, because I have people in my team who can really do the action and drive results in their respective areas, because I'm able to trust their capabilities, and that leaves space for me to operate at the level that I need to as a leader. So I really love that you hit on that, because, I've seen that in my journey, working for other leaders. When I've elevated team members as leaders, sometimes I've seen them struggle with that, so a very, very, very important point is for us to remember that, when we can empower our team, pun intended, when we can empower our team to do their very best, that just leaves more space for the leader to do their job even better. And it's not a threat. It actually enhances the performance of the leader. So.
Absolutely. And of course, if you are a leader who's trying to get on top of it all, have all the answers, be the best, that is such hard work. That is very, very stressful, hard work. And when you find that you're not at the top as well, that can also be psychologically challenging to the ego, and set off all sorts of things, the fight, flight, freeze response, and ultimately lead to health challenges, going into overdrive, and eventually, potentially, leading to health issues. So,
yeah,
going back to what you shared earlier, Katie, we're all connected. Our mind, body, soul is all connected. We are all connected to each other as human beings. We are connected to this planet. A lot of us have learned how to disconnect, but we are connected. And when we're not honoring that, again, it's creating a whole lot of stress that we're not even aware of.
Oh no, I absolutely love what you said. Yes, very important. Yeah, and I think the more that people can realize this interconnectivity, and tap into it. And I know that can sound like sort of mystical. Well, how do you tap into it? What do you mean tap into the interconnectivity? I know it probably sounds like something very woo-woo. But again, this is science. This is science, I think people have sometimes heard of this very interesting research that was done in a hospital, where apparently they were noticing that just because certain people on the staff were making eye contact and smiling, the satisfaction of the patients was better. So doctors and nurses were making eye contact with each other and smiling. And that had a massive impact on just sort of the experience of patients, which of course impacts how many patients are wanting to come to this hospital, So these things are not just woo-woo, sort of not that important. They really matter. Our connection to the planet matters. So I think it's so wonderful that we're talking about this. And much as that wisdom is coming forth more, I don't think it can be said enough, because what I see for sure is that, there's still more work to be done in terms of people acting on this, in their own personal journey, myself included. I need to be, and I work to be intentional about reconnecting with the earth, reconnecting with people in an authentic way, reconnecting with my partner, reconnecting with my team. So I think, the invitation there for all of us always is to come back to that, and be intentional about it. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a wonderful book that I'm reading at the moment, or listening to actually. I got it here. The Myth of Normal by Gabriel Matter. Did I say that? Matter. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, but it's a really magnificent book in terms of highlighting the impact of our beliefs and ways of being and doing, and how it has an impact on our systems, our health, and beyond. So it's a great book. It's a big book, but it's a great book, and recommend it to anyone to learn more about themselves and how we operate as human beings in this wonderful system called planet Earth. So Katie, I know we've spoken quite a bit now, and so potentially time to start to wrap up. What would be your final words of wisdom as we wrap up?
My final words of wisdom would be that the stuff under the surface is what is make or break. When we talk about leadership and performance, it's that unseen stuff, the emotions, the mindset, the attitudes that make or break our results. I would add that it is imperative, if you are a leader, it is imperative to be continuously learning and developing your craft as a leader. Developing your capabilities as a leader is what I mean to say. And, understanding the resonant leadership styles, and as in particular, the coaching leadership style, I think is a journey worth taking. It's a skill worth learning. And to give yourself permission to be bad at it until you become good. Give yourself permission to be bad at it until you become good, so that you can take a breath and say, you know what, it's okay for me to go and start to learn and practice. And with time, see the fruits of my study, of my effort. Because I wonder if oftentimes people don't take the leap of learning how to lead, in part because they may not be willing to look at, is this really working? Is it really working? And if it's not, start where you are. It's okay to start where you are. So those would be the thoughts I would leave people with. And I'm curious about yours, Jeanine.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I'm really appreciative of what you've just shared now in terms of, wherever you are, and these are my words versus yours. This is what I'm making up based on what you've shared. Wherever you are on this leadership journey is perfectly imperfect. It is a journey. It is about learning a skill set, a way of being, unpeeling the layers that we've put around ourselves to protect ourselves. And so I'm just remembering, what you shared earlier about that potential guilt of what you experienced as a new leader. And I'm trusting that, the people that you attracted into your life back then, they will appreciate that you were doing the best that you could. And they are learning from that too. There's always going to be learning from those experiences. They will potentially be learning, who am I to be moving forward? What is it that I want to experience from that experience? And of course, you've learned from that powerfully. You've gone on this amazing journey because you've got curious about that experience. And there's a desire, a want to be able to support people to be the best versions of themselves as you step into what you know and what you've learned to be as a leader. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that. And the other piece that you shared was, learn these skills. And adding to that, really like you did, Katie, going on a journey of learning the skills of coaching, how to connect, how to build trust, how to get curious, how to hold the space to have courageous conversations that support people to bring out what's important and learn from that, learn their own personal wisdom, and to be coached, as you shared that you were coached. So again, you're experiencing coaching and tapping into who you are authentically. What is your purpose? What are your values? The things that are yours, not other people's values, but your own, the things that inspire and drive you, that brings out your energy, your passion, your strength. So learning about who you are as a leader is part of that powerful journey of learning all of those things that you shared in relation to being an effective, powerful, heart-led, mind-led, because we want to tap into both. And, the experts will say that the heart has wisdom, it has knowledge, it's part of our brain, it's connected to our brain. So having said all of that, we do have some coach training coming up. So if you do want to find out more about the Empower World coach training, please do click on the links that are below this recording, this podcast, or this post, wherever it is that you found us, to find out more about what's coming up very soon. And Katie, I think we've got some other things that people can also join, particularly if you're in Qatar. So over to you.
Yes. Really excited to have launched Empower World's Epicenter series of events. Every month we are having a powerful, engaging, interactive, networking session and learning experience where people get a taste of coaching, but also have really rich conversations. It's a different type of networking. We go beyond the niceties of, what job do you do and how might we work together in the future. We're really trying to connect on a deeper level. So if that's something that resonates with you, that you're curious about, I hope you'll join us at our next monthly event. And in particular, we have coming up how to expand your cultural intelligence. August 28th, Workington, at Alpha Down Center, right next to the Sukwakif Metro. If you're in town, hope to see you.
Fantastic, Katie. And yes, we've got a number of our Empower World alumni joining and sharing their wisdom as well. So again, we're tapping into the wisdom of the people that are in Doha to bring these wonderful conversations. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's something that is close to both Marie's and my hearts, and I know yours too. So really appreciate your time and generosity of sharing. So listeners,
thank you for the opportunity.
A huge pleasure. And listeners, we'd love to hear your feedback. Please let us know your thoughts, what you'd like to hear more about, and so much more. We'd love to hear your feedback. I know Katie would too. So look forward to you joining us next time.
Thanks for listening. You can find out more about us on our website, www.empower-world.com, and on our social media networks, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Be empowered.